I remember a number of years ago, I used to eat ice cream like every single day. I don't anymore. Not that you can't and still get results, you certainly can. At the time, Publix had my favorite ice cream that was on sale. It was BOGO. It was the Edie's chocolate chip cookie ice cream, and I picked up 4 of them knowing I was gonna eat them a lot and it was on sale. Brought it up to the cashier to check out, and the lady looked at me and she's like, "Wow, like this ice cream much?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's my favorite. I eat it every single day." And I was in my tank top and she just looked at me and she's like, "Well, how are you in such good shape if you eat ice cream every day?" And I just said, "Well, I just account for it in my daily calories." And I will never forget the look that she gave me. I mean, I have never in my life seen such a deer in the headlights, just blank stare, like I was talking a foreign language to her. What are you even talking about? It's just like, it could not process that I can incorporate ice cream and account for it and get results. Now, since then, I don't really do that anymore. I mean, I'm okay with incorporating some stuff into my diet. I don't ban any foods. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I also know that food quality still matters. If you eat a lot of junk, and even if you're able to get results, you just generally don't feel very good if you're not fueling the body well. So I'm certainly not saying that things like ice cream or any other food you deem as bad should be a staple in your diet. I am saying you need to get away from this kind of binary black and white thinking. Some foods are good, you should eat a lot of. Some foods are bad, you should avoid them completely. Because what looking at foods as good versus bad does is it creates an unhealthy relationship with food. If you look at foods as having morality and being bad, when you do have it, you feel like you have done something wrong. You beat yourself up, you feel guilty, you end up binging on it because you feel like you've already ruined your whole diet, so what's the point anyways? I might as well get in as much as I can now before my diet starts again tomorrow. Now you've way overdone it, you feel even worse, so what do? You try to make up for it the next day or several days by severely restricting your intake, which just leads you down this horrible path of feeling like it's impossible, feeling even more restricted again, until you once again get to the point of feeling overwhelmed, feeling like it's impossible. You go off path again, and you just repeat this cycle and continue yo-yo dieting, doing nothing but getting even fatter and fatter. So there's just something so much different when you realize you have the choice to eat what you want. And the nice thing about when it's a choice is you can feel good about it. You might want to have that ice cream today and you can eat it and feel fine and just move on. Or you might think, I don't need that today. It's always there. I can have it whenever I want, but I'm choosing not to have it. When it's your choice, you're okay with it. When you feel like you can't have something, it just makes you want it even more. Now again, healthy foods, and I use quotes because everyone has a different definition of what healthy or clean is, but these foods should certainly make up a good portion of your diet. These whole foods, nutrient-dense foods, minimally processed foods, they're great, they're gonna fuel the body well. But the reason they help with fat loss isn't because they're magical or your body has some sort of filtration system where you digest the food and it goes, okay, this is good, let's burn fat, this is bad, let's store fat. It doesn't work that way. What does happen when you eat the healthier options is they're usually more filling and less calories. So because you're not so hungry and you're consuming fewer calories, now you're in a calorie deficit and you start losing weight. Whereas if you're including more things like high sugary foods, while they don't on their own just store as body fat, and I've done tons of videos about how there's numerous studies that have looked at calorie and protein equated diets and showed no difference whether there was a higher sugar intake or a lower sugar intake. But higher sugar foods are easy to overeat on because they don't fill you up very much. Sometimes you crave even more and you end up overdoing it, but sustainability matters. It's the most important thing. It doesn't matter what you do if you can't keep doing it long term. And what do you usually do when you go into a diet? You say, I'm going to eliminate all these foods, everything that I basically love, and I'm just going to eat whatever diet. I'm not picking on any certain diet, but you just go to the extremes and just try to white knuckle it until you finally snap. So all that being said, I do want to talk about some of the foods that you can incorporate that I do consider to be some of the better sources of food that can help with weight loss, but I'm going to talk about that in a minute. First, I also want you to understand that it kind of depends on what you put on it too. For instance, did you know that popcorn is actually a really macro-friendly source and a great food that can help fill you up well? It's a high fiber food, it has a lot of volume, and it's lower calorie. But once you start throwing a bunch of butter and maybe caramel or cheese or whatever you like on your popcorn, well, now that starts adding up much faster. You can have celery, which is basically almost no calories, but you start slathering the peanut butter on there and make ants on a log, and suddenly the calories go through the roof. And hey, even then, some healthy foods are very easy to overeat too and not very filling. For instance, all the different nuts have healthy nutritional components to them, but for what you get calorie-wise, you do not get very much food. And I've had many times where I've heard someone say, I'm eating so healthy and I can't lose weight, and they basically say it while they're pounding an entire tin of nuts, and it's like, well, you just plowed through 2,000 calories like it was nothing. Same thing with things like oils, olive oils, very healthy properties to them, but they don't fill you up at all. It's just calories that you dump on your food, and it doesn't do anything for your hunger. I'm not saying to avoid these things. I'm just saying this is why you can't just look at eat healthy or don't eat healthy and expect to get results. So what you do want to do is eat a high protein diet. This is arguably one of the biggest challenges I have as a coach, is getting people to eat enough protein. It is such a challenge for so many people, but it's extremely helpful to eat a lot of protein. Now, I don't want to talk a lot about how much to eat in terms of calories, protein, all that. I have tons of videos on that. I'll put one in the description below. You can check out after this one so you can combine kind of what food sources to eat and how much of it to eat to get the best results possible. I just want to keep this video from getting too long, but you do want to eat a higher protein diet. You want to eat plenty of fruits and vegetables. Stop trying to avoid them at all costs, and don't avoid fruit because of sugar. I promise you nobody's ever gotten fat off of raspberries. But what I do want to do is go over foods that are higher in certain macronutrients, that they're generally some of the better whole food sources that will help you feel full, have some good nutritional components. So with protein being the most important macronutrient, let's start there. And these are some of the more lean proteins. So if you don't know, lean protein basically means a protein source that doesn't have many other calories from either fat or carbohydrates. It's mostly protein. So that would be things like skinless chicken and turkey breast, egg whites, white fish, whey protein, the leaner varieties of beef, so like a 93.7, there's even usually 96.4. A lot of different seafoods like shrimp are mostly protein, and also low-fat or non-fat dairy products, especially Greek yogurt, come with a lot of protein. For higher quality sources of carbs, you can look for things like rice and grains and potatoes. Yes, all kinds of potatoes. Of course, fruits and veggies, oats, whole wheat sources of things like bread and pasta, and as I mentioned, the ever underrated popcorn. Some really good sources that are mostly fat, that have the healthy varieties of fat, are things like nuts, seeds, oils like olive oil, avocados, and whole eggs, which also comes with more protein. It's also good to make sure you're getting plenty of fiber in for things, yes, like digestion, but also much like protein, it has a very high thermic effect of food. It's also very filling. Foods that are higher in fiber are oftentimes higher in your micronutrients, your vitamins and minerals. So some good sources of fiber are things like fruits and vegetables, beans and lentils, whole grains and wheat, oat, popcorn, baked potato with skin, and bran. Now, those are just some of them. I do have a chart that I'm going to put up on the screen here, and if you want some more options, you can pause this and maybe make yourself a list or do like a screen capture. And what it'll show is foods that are higher in certain macronutrients or have some sort of mixture, and it has a much bigger variety. But don't forget, nothing should be off limits. There's no such thing as foods that just store as body fat. And if you still don't believe me, what I want you to do next is check out this top video where I show you several examples of how people have consumed a lot of traditionally unhealthy food, seeing great results, not just with fat loss, but also changing their health markers. So check that out next. Otherwise, I think you'll like this bottom video instead, and I'll see you in one of those other videos.